In the summer of 1952, the most heavily defended airspace on Earth was breached. Radar operators in the nation's capital watched as unknown, glowing blips bypassed every earthly defense and hovered directly over the White House. Ground control scrambled F-94 Starfire jets to intercept. The military went on high alert, desperate to stop what looked like an imminent strike. But when those fighter pilots reached the Capitol, they encountered objects that defied the laws of aerodynamics and outpaced their top-tier jets with ease. To this day, the U.S. government has no definitive explanation for what they chased. For the first time since the dawn of the Cold War, the American defense network faced a target it couldn't touch. These 2 weekends forced the military to confront a gap in their security they didn't know existed. This breach didn't happen in a vacuum. During the first half of 1952, the Air Force was drowning in reports of unidentified flying objects. In just a few months, they cataloged over 700 new sightings. The sheer volume of reports triggered a nationwide media frenzy. Reputable outlets like Life magazine published cover stories actively considering the possibility of extraterrestrial visitors. The public was reading about flying saucers every single day. Behind closed doors, the Pentagon was anxious. The newly formed Project Blue Book was supposed to investigate these sightings, but investigators were chronically underfunded and repeatedly failed to identify or track the most credible radar returns. The military was effectively flying blind, while civilian panic grew. It was only a matter of time before the phenomenon pushed past rural backroads and tested the center of American power. That test arrived at 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, July 19th at Washington National Airport. Air traffic controller Edward Nugent slotted 7 unknown blips on his screen. They weren't following commercial flight paths. Instead, they were executing radical, jerky maneuvers that no conventional aircraft could survive. Nugent's superior had the equipment checked for malfunctions. It was working perfectly. Soon, Andrews Air Force Base confirmed the same targets on their screens, and civilian pilots waiting on the tarmac radioed in to report bright, tailless lights streaking across the night sky. 2 F-94 Starfire interceptors roared out of Newcastle Air Force Base to hunt the targets down. But the moment the jets entered the sector, the unknown objects vanished completely from every radar scope. The objects returned the moment the fighters left the sector. To the controllers watching the timing, it appeared the intruders weren't just flying, they were reacting to the military's movements with calculated precision. This diagram shows the scale of the next weekend's escalation. Exactly 1 week later, on July 26th, the lights returned. The radar centers tracked the targets moving slowly, then suddenly reversing direction and accelerating to an impossible 7,000 miles per hour. The Air Force scrambled another flight of Starfires. Lieutenant William Patterson pushed his jet to its maximum speed, diving below 1,000 feet to chase down the cluster of radar returns. He found them. 4 glowing white objects materialized in the dark, swarming his interceptor. Even at full throttle, Patterson couldn't close the distance. They were flying circles around him. Patterson keyed his radio to ground control. He told them the targets were all around him and asked what he should do. Back at the airport, the operators sat in stunned silence. Nobody answered, because nobody knew what to tell him. By sunrise, the skies were clear again. The synchronized radar data and pilot testimony painted a grim picture. The most technologically advanced military on Earth had been thoroughly outpaced in the skies over its own capital. The sightings made front-page news across the country. President Harry Truman, deeply alarmed by the breach, personally demanded an explanation from the Air Force. Facing political pressure, Major General John Samford led the largest Pentagon press conference since World War II. Their goal was to immediately defuse the panic. Samford claimed a temperature inversion, warm air trapping cool air, bent radar beams downward to reflect off ground objects, mimicking aircraft. He suggested this same distortion refracted starlight, creating the illusion of darting high-speed craft. It was a neat scientific package. But the men on the ground didn't buy it. Experienced radar operators and combat-tested pilots publicly rejected the idea that a simple weather anomaly had outmaneuvered an F-94 interceptor. The aggressive debunking had a strategic motive. The CIA feared an enemy nation, like the Soviet Union, could deliberately flood the country with fake UFO reports. If communications were clogged with flying saucer panic, a sneak attack could slip right through. To neutralize this psychological vulnerability, the CIA convened the Robertson Panel in early 1953, gathering prominent scientists to review Project Blue Book's most credible cases. Their mandate was clear: to stop investigating and start debunking. The panel instructed the Air Force to actively strip the UFO phenomenon of its mystery, reducing public interest through systemic, mundane explanations. This policy formalized a divide between official government reports and the personal accounts of service members. It established a pattern of dismissal that kept technical radar data and pilot testimony locked in a cycle of public skepticism and private concern. The Washington flap forced the military to choose between admitting a massive vulnerability or denying the evidence of their own senses. Over 70 years later, the official records say it was just weather. But what actually buzzed the White House